It is really, and you've heard this before from many of us, a privilege to be here. I was counting last night, and this is my 10th Global Forum. And what's really remarkable is that this was a dream of a few individuals, and this is the 24th Global Forum, and next year will be the 25th anniversary. So I'd just like to take a moment and once again thank Silviana and Sebastian for keeping this alive and doing it so well. So thank you very much. The Global Forum is incredibly unique in terms of how we present. You've already seen that. And we have some incredible speakers and we have an incredible panel. In fact, clearly this is the best panel in the entire conference. Just making sure you're paying attention because there's a bunch of other people who might disagree. But it is a great panel and it's an important panel. And one of the things that I believe you're seeing that's emerging is I look at the Global Forum like a quilt. And the quilt is something that kind of repeats itself pattern by pattern. And by the time we leave, we have a very clear sense of what are the priorities, what are the issues, and what might we anticipate in the coming years. And I think if we look back where we were 10 years ago or the very beginning, it would be very interesting to see how the topics have changed, however slightly, but giving us a new meaning. So we're going to talk today about one of the most fundamental parts of this whole issue of digitalization, and that's the issue of infrastructure. Are we ready? And the question is, ready for what and when? But before I begin, I would like to turn this over to our chair, Antti Larsio, who is going to say a few opening remarks, and hopefully we'll have some observations at the end as well.
Thanks, Alan. This is my first Global Forum, and it's a pleasure and privilege to be here. And also to say a few opening words in a couple of minutes, actually, for this session. Yesterday morning we heard that the 4 crowding pillars for our journey or route to the digital future are, the first one is e-infrastructure. I think it's quite close to this intelligent infrastructure, but anyhow. And the second is e-applications, applications that in a way allow us to use that infrastructure and build new services. Then it's the third one is e-security and e-privacy. And the fourth one is e-skills. Now, one question that I'm thinking of is that what is the role and responsibility of our public sector and our government in these areas? Should they lead the development or act just as enablers to this development? I think it is the latter one. The government should enable the development and work in close cooperation with private sector. That's my opinion. Government should promote the environment and secure by regulatory means that there's an environment where this development can happen, and that we will have a decent network communication available for everyone. And also that the mobile network coverage we will have also in the rural areas. These two elements were also mentioned yesterday, broadband access and mobile network coverage. Also, regulators should secure that the development doesn't compromise citizens' rights and the citizens can trust that their security concerns and privacy have been taken care of. That's a very important part. And even further, government should secure that education systems will raise citizens who can take full benefit of this development and also of this digital new services. But is this enough? What is decent communication network? And when a mobile network coverage is good enough? Technology is evolving incredibly fast. We are moving towards a world where we are connected everywhere, seamlessly across any device. So what is ahead of us? What are the drivers for this development? who will and how benefit of this development? What is government's role in this development? Should they invest, and if so, to what, when, and why? These, among other things, will be touched in the next 90 minutes or so. And please enjoy the session, and Alan will continue from here.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've certainly set the stage by asking the right questions, and I know that our panelists are going to have at least half the answers, or more. If I could begin with a quick slide deck, kind of, again, helping set the stage. When we look at the Internet of Everything, which is part of this, so often in the conversations we keep talking about broadband as if we're talking about mobile devices only. And I think the significant aspect, this term digitalization includes everything. And so broadband may be one of the pipes, maybe one of the avenues in which information flows from one point to the other, whether it's through fiber, whether it's through satellite. But this whole idea of 50 billion smart objects is really a staggering figure. And already it's starting to happen in our homes, where we can be anywhere and be able to look at any room in the house with a very inexpensive camera and see exactly what's going on. And more frightening is I realized that one of those cameras actually had a microphone, and I spooked a babysitter by saying, "Boo." And this person knew I was in Europe, was totally unaware that I was thousands of miles away, and totally, was afraid, because that was clearly my voice. So all these objects, whether it be a camera, a sensor, a gauge, all these things are sending data. And what's to me most remarkable, is at this moment in time, there are more machines talking to each other than people. That's already happened. So this is a whole issue of tying this thing with people, things, data, and process. This has been said before, and I think what we're hearing in this quilt that I mentioned is that we are designing a quilt together as thought leaders, which is what the Global Forum is really about, and looking at these various issues and starting to comprehend the dollar amounts that are associated with this, the policies that have to support it, and the manufacturers who are developing products with unbelievable speed. So the next convergence, why now? Well, it's all coming together. This wouldn't have happened maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago. Some will take credit for seeing this, but clearly we're seeing all this connectivity. The cloud has been more accepted. Sensors and devices are becoming more sophisticated, smaller, and with better battery life. We have ubiquitous connectivity, and now we have the analytics to support many of these things to be able to really measure and hopefully make better decisions. So, what the public sector leaders should know or do or think, again, what Mr. Larsio said, is IO is here today. The Internet of Things or the Internet of Everything, whichever, it's here. The concerns over security and systems and data are real. And I think next time we need to spend more time talking about that, because all this will fail unless we're better able to protect. And I'm amazed. Now, I have to tell you this, if Donald Trump wins as president of the United States, I'm moving to Ulu. Here's a man that's taken an issue of border control by building bigger fences, when the greater issue by far is digital boundaries and digital borders everywhere. In the United States, $3 trillion are lost every year to fraud and theft. That is a far greater threat. So we have to be very careful as we move this connection of everything. We're already hearing about cars being hijacked and broken into by cyber criminals. So as we become smarter with our equipment, we also become more vulnerable. So that number 2 is really important. Number 3, data governance on ownership, control, and sharing is critical. We don't have all the answers yet, but I think we're starting to ask the right questions. And then finally, governments really need to be involved. They must establish policies, yes, a level playing field, and yes, to support certain industries and assuring the safety and treating some of these violations that I just mentioned with far greater seriousness than they have today. So that is my opening remarks. And the final thing I'll say is, in talking to one of my classes, I started talking about this subject, and 98% of my students said they didn't have a clue what I was talking about. And I think the person on the street would be clueless to any of the discussions that have transpired thus far. But I will say this, while they don't care about the overall subject of the Internet of Everything, it's kind of a hard topic to grasp. They don't care about advertised speed with their devices. They don't care about infrastructure. And we should just turn and go home. But the answer is, wait a minute, it's all about what we're calling things from their point of view. Boy, they care about always being connected. They care about how quickly they can search, find, and view. They assume there will be abundance of spectrum if it translates to doing the things that they want, that they can grow in their homes, their cars, and their businesses. They care about affordability and accessibility, and they certainly care about security, and they're hoping that somebody is looking out for them collectively. So that's the big picture. So with that, we do have a great panel, and what I'd like to do is have each of the panelists spend a few moments sharing their thoughts from their perspective on this issue of infrastructure. And then we're going to leave time for some questions, and all the biographic information is on the Global Forum's website and in your packet, so I will not spend time taking their valuable time in introducing them, because you can look that up, and hopefully you have and will, perhaps as they're speaking. So our first speaker is going to be Timo, head of the Ecosystems Research, Nokia Technologies, Finland.